Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Did you ever have something happen to you in your life? Something seemingly small and really inconsequential, but you just can't let it go and it spirals into this all consuming obsession that you can't understand? Yeah, we've been there. We've all been there. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening. And if you are listening, hit that subscribe button. Give us the old the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, we're on the Instagram, we're on the TikTok, and we're on the Letterboxd for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because, if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a fun one. It's a little bit of Canadiana, which, Canadian cinema, which is always near and dear to our heart. We are talking a little bit about the new movie, which is in theaters now for a limited run, called Retrograde, from writer-director Adrian Murray, and it is the story of a young woman who is involved in a minor traffic incident, and she gets a citation. And seemingly it's one of those things that just happens on a day-to-day basis to everybody, but she becomes more and more obsessed with why this happens, and it's just she spirals into this really sort of fascinating rabbit hole of neuroses, and it's a hilarious and funny and upsettingly relatable movie. But we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with the writer and director of this film, Adrian Murray, to ask about the inspiration for it all, if it was a fever dream standing in line at Service Ontario, or where it all came from, and so very, very much more. But if you get a chance, check out Retrograde. I know it is doing limited screenings all across our great country. I'm actually doing a Q&A for a couple of them tonight and tomorrow over at Cineplex Yonge and Dundas. So if you're in Toronto, please come down and say hello and watch some great Canadiana. But first, please enjoy our talk with Adrian Murray, because between you and me, it is a darn good one. All right, well, Adrian, obviously, first off, man, just thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this. And congrats on the movie, man. I love it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. And thanks for having the time and putting me on your show.
Oh, please. Now, walk me through the idea of this movie, man. It feels like an idea born out of being in line at Service Ontario. But I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. Well, the genesis for the thing actually didn't come from the traffic stuff. It came from a party I was at where I was getting an astrology reading done, and I disagreed with what they were saying about me. But everyone around me was like, "Oh yeah, no, this is totally you." And so it was just this frustrating disconnect of how I saw myself and the actions I take versus how everyone else saw me. And that collided with another, story idea I had about fighting this ticket. And the fact that I've been in line at Service Ontario as I fought these tickets, I thought they talk to each other in an interesting way. And so it's kind of where the story began.
Now, I love the visual aesthetic of it all, like sort of the forest in the backseat shot or the forest down the hall shot. Like, how big was that for you to sort of really create this distance between the character and I guess sort of the rest of the world?
Well, the visual style is sort of an evolution of how I worked on my previous feature, where it was very much began as this budget conscious decision where we can't hire an army of grips or anything, so we can do like 2 setups a day and if
independent cinema. I love it. All right.
Yeah, exactly. But then for this film, it felt right because we were talking about what you see and what you don't see and what's true and what isn't so much, that it felt like, well, it's better if we don't get in there and edit, because then we're sort of showing our hand, and we might be hiding something in there. So if we just have this very observational approach to each scene, then we're not hiding anything. What you see is what you get.
No, but you know what though, man? It adds to the neuroses of it all, and I mean, it adds to the tension and the stress. But I mean, obviously, so much of that is prisoned through your lead. I mean, talk me through finding this fantastic woman with this fantastic performance to carry the whole thing. Because I mean, again, this is the kind of movie where if the actor isn't sort of in sync with you, I can imagine it not working.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it was written for her.
Well, then there you go.
Yeah, and we've been housemates before, so we have a shorthand for this irritating housemate drama stuff. So I knew from working with her in a smaller role in my previous film that she was also a very engaged. She's a writer, and she's a very engaged actor, and she pushed back against things that she thought didn't make sense for a character, thought weren't good. So I knew that by casting her, I'd have an active participant in making the film, and not someone who would just be reading. And she is perfect. I think she understood the character completely. It's not, the character isn't based on her, despite me casting her. I just knew she would be really good at it, because she has a quality that is both, she can be very intense and focused, but also incredibly lovable at the same time. So I mean,
yeah, for sure. Because I mean, there's a universal relatability to this story and to this character. I mean, even like uncomfortably so at times. But like, I mean, I'm kind of curious, what was it about this dynamic and sort of us taking us on this journey with this character that was interesting to you? Because I mean, again, it's one of those things in watching it, it's like I was squirming, but I was appreciating it because I've lived it.
Yeah. Well, I've it's been said to me a couple times that you either are Molly or you know a Molly. And when writing it, I certainly wrote it from the perspective of like, I've been a Molly. Everything Molly does is reflective of like, these are the conversations I have in my head. These are the arguments I'm having with Service Ontario in my head. That I've like, I got a speeding ticket when I was 20, and I've been arguing that for like 13 years just in my head, as to why I'm right. So I can be I'm very neurotic up here. I might not act on it the same way that Molly does, but it's a very identifiable, relatable character to me. And so
now this is a dumb question, but I've got to ask, because just the opening sequence in the car with the house plants. I mean, just it didn't need to be there, but it was so perfect that it was there. What is it about these sort of little idiosyncratic bits, especially particularly in that shot, that you're like putting into stories like this?
Well, I love telling some of the story, because the style, we sit with that shot so much,
Right.
We try and fill the frame with things that are gonna recur later, and are gonna be, they don't need to be hugely significant. The plant ends up being somewhat significant.
Right.
She also has a tapestry of some astrology tapestry that if you look, you can see.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the astrology stuff comes into play later. So the plant was, it's also just aesthetically nice to have some green in there, but it's an excuse for the other housemate to say she didn't see it. It becomes a point of argument for them. And then it's just in her house. She has to be confronted with this sort of reminder of the conflict every day. So we like to load as many locations with meaning as possible. And the plant was one of the way to do that.
No, I mean, I mean this in the best way. It's such a simple story idea, and it's such a simple story point. But I mean, other than the obvious, like, budgetary things, like like from your perspective, what is it about the beauty of keeping it simple? Because I mean, a lot of times with people making their first features or independent features, they will try to bung it up. Like, I love your aesthetic of like, let's keep it simple, stupid.
Well, part of that, I mean, I love working so a lot of that the aesthetic comes from the DP, John Palanca, who I went to film school with, and he shot his own films, and sometimes they looked kind of similar to this. So we he evolved on that, and I'm letting him do a bit of his own work there. But I think with a story this small scale and small, the external stakes are relatively low. Internal stakes are like really high, but it feels like it feels too ostentatious to have all this coverage and try and force some sort of affect on an audience that shouldn't be there. It's the same reason why there's no score or no music. Part of that again is because we probably couldn't afford music, but a lot of that is another one is that we're just not trying to make you feel something formally. We're not trying to guide your emotions formally. This is of course completely impossible. There is, like you say, you're guiding them towards this sort of uncomfortable captive feeling, but we're not trying to create it artificially.
Well, I mean, the less on the screen allows our imaginations to go on fire and to get sort of more going. And I mean, to me, that's the magic of this piece. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, like for you as a storyteller and a filmmaker, like, was there a movie that you saw as like sort of a young man where you sort of acknowledged the less, but it made you appreciate the more that was going on in your head as you watched it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have I really didn't like Richard Linklater growing up, and then I'm still growing up, but later on, I really started to get into him. And there's a B-side movie on the Criterion edition of Slacker, which is his like very first feature, called "It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books." And
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know it.
It's for those who haven't seen, it's just a travelogue. He sets up his Super 8 camera, boards a train, and then we sort of watch him take a train to another town, watch him walk around that town, do laundry, etc. And part of the excitement of that style was I just thought, oh, hey, I can technically do that. Technically, I can put together enough footage there to make a feature. That's sort of the boring side of being inspired by it. But I was also really into how that let you breathe, and it felt like the film kind of treated me a little more respectfully than if it was it wasn't manipulating me. It was showing me something honest. It was showing me something that clearly was, it was thought out and wasn't trying to be more than it was. And yeah, I just loved breathing with that film. And I find it, kind of very rewatchable. I know I might be in a minority there, but I find that I find that when a film gives you that room to breathe, that ambiguity, it's more interesting to sit with and think about and return to. And so,
no, I mean, I'm kind of curious, just to start putting a bow on this. I mean, obviously, filmmakers, at least from like my observations, they tend to fall into different categories. Sometimes filmmakers will want to tell stories along a similar bent and do like explore different avenues, but along the same idea. Or they will want to go conversely something somewhere different. Like now for you, as you see, this film getting ready to go out into the universe and with more and more audiences getting ready to see it, do you think from a style standpoint, this will be something, this kind of story will stay with you? Or are you sort of clacking away horribly at a science fiction film right now and you just want to go in a completely different direction?
Well, my writing partner and I are always working on some sci-fi stuff. We love some big high concept stuff. A lot of this did come out just because it's budget. This is the scale of film that we felt we could make without sort of waiting for someone to approve $1 million, which to me was
right, exactly
not to make films. So I do think, I hope to make more films, but I think the style will probably evolve. I always want to try something that I haven't tried, formally on the previous one, but I do like expanding on the groundwork we've laid.
Well, no, and I'm with you on that, but I mean, at the same time, I also like, and I hope you keep sort of the idea of less is more, because I mean, really, it allows for such clarity and idea and just such great performances and great work to come out, which I think you've done with this film, man, honestly. And I mean, I can't wait for more people to see it. But again, congrats on the work, man, and thank you so much for the time today.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.